So, hello again everybody. In case you've forgotten, my name's Paul. I am a user experience designer, developer type person at Jadu. Mainly, you've heard from Matt about spacecraft, but I am mainly focused on the product side of things, so the CMS we all know and love, our Q platform, which you'll hear about later, and basically any product side of things. It's not just me, I have a team. We have 3 people currently holed up in Leeds, in our brand new office, which is still nice and shiny and clean, which is good. But we also have various people across the organisation that are very interested in the experience of our software. We've spoken to Rachel already today about the eye tracking stuff and the research side of things. So I wanted to kind of introduce Pulsar. You've probably heard it a lot, especially if you talk to anyone at Jadu. They kind of say Pulsar is the next big thing that we're going to be pushing out. And there's 2 main sides of Pulsar. There is the user interface side and the user experience side. It's kind of 2 sides of the same coin. So when we talk about Pulsar, we might be talking about the UI or we might be talking about the UX. To start off with, when we talk about the interface, when we mean the HTML, the CSS, all the technical parts that make up our software user interface. The focus on this and what Pulsar aims to do with our interface is all this stuff. I won't read it out, but we need to make the experience better, not only for the people that use our software, and that includes all of you and all of the people you represent, but also for us at Jadu as designers and developers, and for your own designers and developers who might be writing custom code for the software. Maybe to set the scene a little bit, I used to be a Jadu customer at University of Leeds. I was involved in the design and development of various things across that organisation, developing custom code for Jadu. So I know the pain sometimes, and I know how sometimes frustrating it can be when things aren't as nice and clean and consistent as they should be, and they will be. When we're talking about the experience, it's the other side of that coin. It's the research, the wireframing, the process really of how we build our experience up. And to improve that, the reason we are focusing on our UX is all of these goals. To make you guys happier, to make us happier, to reduce complexity, to be more task oriented, to really make using any piece of Jadu software the best experience it can be. So part of this is the Pulsar UI framework. I've got some sneak peeks. I've got a more detailed example with me today, the actual working framework. But what we did is tore everything down. Started back to the brickwork. So the interfaces you've seen today, quite heavy, blocked, lots of grey tables. They're kind of I can't really say a thing of the past because they're all in the software that you're using today, but within Pulsar and going forward, they will be a thing of the past. We've standardised our colour palette, making sure that everything is nice and AA compliant in terms of colour contrast. You can probably tell from the hints there if you've come across SAS before, which is a CSS pre-processing language that we're using that quite heavily, so you can address these colours directly. You don't have to worry about what hex values or RGBA values they are. You can just call these variables in your own code. We've used the Twig front-end library to abstract away the markup sometimes. So instead of knowing the markup for a button, that is the tags and the classes and the attributes that you need to use, we've written a load of helper methods. It's actually a typo in this one. Let's pretend that's not there. I've got a better example of this, but as fine-grained as this, to know how to include a button in your interface, you have documented examples that you can extend, that we demonstrate what you can do with that button, how you can extend it, chain it together and make it exactly what you need it to be. And then behind the scenes of this little code snippet is all of the code that we generate, the HTML, and that we can make our interfaces more testable, and that's the biggest benefit. Standardized buttons. If you've ever used Jadu software, you know that buttons can look many different ways of capitalization on the labels, depending on how the engineer was feeling that day. Style guides are really important now. We're going to define the rules that you should use to build these interfaces. So we're going to give you guidance about how things should be labeled, about how buttons should be written, about your help text, how that should be written, the kind of tone of voice that we're going to use, so that whether you're if you're in the Jadu CMS, whether you're using a module that we've designed, or whether you're using a module that, say, University Leads' Course Finder that's completely their own, your users should know the difference. It should be a seamless experience as they use our code or your code. It should all be nice and consistent. More examples: we've got labels, we've got progress bars, and it's all these colours are standardised from the ones that we defined up there. We've got brand new elements. We call this the progress list. I'll show this kind of in use in a second. So you can probably tell that the visual style that we're starting to bring in is vastly different than what you're kind of used to. It's more modern. It's just nicer. We've got panel components. This is a bit more detailed. Again, it probably doesn't show on this projector, but the colour contrast, because the colours are defined centrally, we know these are all AA compliant. So I guess even with the lights on and on a fairly bad projector, it's mostly readable. This is an example of the documentation inside the helper code to generate a panel like this. You've got a title attribute, you've got the body, and the documentation about all the different things that you can add to this object. So you can add classes if you want to hook in your own styling, or if you want to say give it the success style. We tell you how to do that. You can define an icon that appears, so we can kind of control these from a library that we have built into the system. This didn't really know whether to show code. I know sometimes putting code on the screen is a bit much. This is the bit of code that actually takes, at the very top line, that panel object with its options, which that's an example of, generates the markup and spits it out. Beauty of this, and this is the thing that I get probably a bit too excited about, is we've now, from having a system with hundreds of scripts and hundreds of front-end scripts and lots of HTML markup, for all of these, the markup for a panel, no matter how many tens or hundreds of times it's used, is defined once. Which means that if we want to change the class that defines how this is styled, if we want to completely change the markup, we do that once. And everywhere that our users have used this object, it's changed automatically. We can make sure that this is testable. We know we can reliably dictate how that renders in a page. And then we can add to it as if we want more features down the line. We can it's an API effectively for something as small as a link or a button element. And that's just what goes in and what comes out. You as an interface designer, if you're building your own modules, you don't need to worry about, oh god, what class is it for a title? What is it, divs? Is it not divs? Is it a list? You rely on your documented examples. You've gone into a code, you want to change the title of a panel, you go into that script, you can just change the title. You don't have to worry about what's going on. We worry about that for you, and we've got tests behind all this, so that all this kind of stuff, we can test what goes in and what comes out and make sure that our code is working. Good old modals, we see them everywhere these days. You'll probably see these less going forward. We're going to kind of change the rules around these. We're going to use them for really, really bad stuff. For everything else, we're going to use probably something a bit more suitable. And this is an example in our terms, in the library. This is the lexicon. It's just a dump of kind of a lot of different things. And you can start to see, because we design these as very discrete components, a label is a standalone label. You can drop it anywhere and it will work. A button stands alone, but you can start to chain them together. So this is a button with an icon with a badge. And you can start to build up and chain together these quite nice elements. Forms. We've got a lot of forms in the software. Again, these have all got helpers behind them, so you can say, right, give me a a text input or give me a select input with these options. You don't have to worry about the markup. You can use raw markup if you want, I'm not bothered, but we've got all these helpers behind that really kind of make our code much cleaner and more consistent. Again, the colours, all defined, kind of tie back into all these elements, so the success and the validation states. And this is an example where we're testing the extremes, like what happens when you chuck far too many words in a label. Does it still render okay? Yeah, it does. And when you throw in different options depending on how you want to lay it out. With date pickers, and for example, the helper for this might be form.date, and that's all you need to do. And you can tell it what you want as the placeholder, and you can give it some help text if you want. The markup that's spat out behind the scenes wires some JavaScript behavior up to this, so that if you want a calendar, you might just say calendar true, and then when a user clicks on this, they get the calendar. You don't have to add in your own libraries to do it. You don't have to worry about going into the JavaScript to set all this up for you. We can wire all this up automatically if you're using our helpers. So I'm going to show you a feature that we've been working on, that we are working on now. It's not released yet, but it should be very soon. Two-step verification. Well, it goes by many names, but we call it two-step verification. And this is one of the big roadmap items that we were going to talk about this morning, but I think we're talking about roadmap later. This is to help make your Jadu software more secure, and it will be opt-in, and you can choose as an organisation whether you're going to add this or not. But I want to show you the process that we're going through to design this, because there's a couple of different factors of it. There's the control center UI side of things. We usually start with wireframes. This is an example of the new Pulsar language. We have the navigation on the left instead of across the top. Not the main navigation, the kind of in-page stuff, the stuff that you used to kind of see running across here. We have inline help text, which in the discussion we were having over here earlier, we're kind of conscious that a lot of Jadu users don't go to certain areas of the site that often, and may need to be kind of reminded about how certain things work, what a certain interface does, and this would say kind of this is to switch all this on and it keeps your account more secure. But we wireframed through the steps, and we took it, refined it a bit on the whiteboard. This is in the new office. We've got a whole one. We're basically desks in a whiteboard room. It's awesome. Started to bring in new elements like you saw earlier, like this progress list. More wireframes, really testing the kind of flow of it, and we can put this in front of different people and get a lot of opinions. And then from these wireframes, we then take it into code. And this is an actual working prototype that then just needs to be wired up within the system. Once we get to this point, you have a QR code. You'll have your Authenticator app, and now that could be the Google Authenticator app on your phone. We are actually going to release a Jadu app on your phone so that you can scan that code in, so that you can get these 6-digit verification codes. You can have PC software that will give you it. If you've not known two-step verification, you'll see it in the next step. It's pretty cool. Again, danger modals if you're going to break things, and those toggles are pretty nice. I like them a lot. This is the Jadu app, scanning the QR code, and then you get your 6-digit verification key. If you've used online banking, you've probably got those fiddly little tokens that you've got to type in your password. And we all know and love this screen. Well, I don't exactly love it, but we use this every day, and this is where the two-step verifications come in. You're going to put in your normal Jadu username, your normal Jadu password, and then if you've decided that you want two-step verification, you're going to be asked for that 6-digit code. So we needed to change the way that this worked. And now for me, with bringing Pulsar in, it's like, right, we're not just going to start hammering stuff in to existing UIs. We're going to take the opportunity to kind of look at things afresh and think, right, if we could redesign the login screen, what would we do? Because it's the ideal time, and this is going to go with any interface in the software, whether it's news, events, and documents. We're not just going to reskin things, because we're wasting a valuable opportunity to kind of rethink the experience of it and really take it back to the beginning. Speak to people like yourselves and think, right, how do you use it on a daily basis? What problems does it have? How does it slow you down? How can we make that experience better? We're going to learn from you guys, which is where the UX panels come in, and we're going to then redesign the software around wants and needs. So, taking the login screen, started with sketches, and we can see there we've got the normal username and password, and we needed to get this part in, the part where we ask you for your 6-digit code, and took it again into wireframes, working through the steps. We're bringing in the new kind of look and feel that you've seen in Pulsar. Some nice animations because we just want to show off a bit, and make sure that the number of steps is as little as possible for what you need to kind of do. Logging in is kind of something that should be ridiculously streamlined. Demo, and we had to show this in. So we've gone from this, and if this works, we're going to go to this, the new Pulsar sign-in screen. So we've brought that new look and feel in, showing off a bit, to be honest. It looks a bit nicer, and we're bringing in these interactions. So if you've forgotten password, we can then ask you for your email address. We're reducing the amount of jumps and the refreshes. If you did it on the old system, you'd hit forgotten password, you got a paid refresh, and then you've got a form that looks slightly different than the last one, and you're not quite sure why. So we can sign in with our ridiculously long and complex password that we all use. 2-step verification is enabled, if it's enabled. If you don't have it, you won't see this bit, you'll just sign in. So at that point, we would bring out our phone, get our 6-digit code, or use the app on our PC if we're not allowed to use company phones or anything like that. And then just signed in. So that process that you saw right from sketches all the way through to prototypes and design is the other side of that Pulsar coin. So I mentioned the UX panels, which came up with the last experience. They rightfully said, we want input into this. This is, you guys see it as your software, rightfully so. We want to make it the best experience for you that we can, and the only way we're going to do that is by working together. So I think an email is going to go out after this for you to kind of sign on to the panels, and they're going to happen remotely. It's a bit crazy to kind of get everyone in the room for the amount of work that we need to do. It's going to take time for us to hone this process, so you might have to bear with us because it's all a bit up in the air. We suspect there will be a massive amount of input from you at first, and we need to kind of figure out how best to take your ideas and work through them. But I kind of want to get you involved in the early stage discussions about upcoming redesigns, especially for features that you already have that are going to change. We had a discussion earlier about the level of communication that we're going to say about what's going to change and when, so that you can let your users know, and we can plan around that to say, right, something as complex as, say, the document editor, which everybody uses, we're not just going to flick that off and change it underneath here from one day to the next. We kind of need to broadcast that change, make sure that your users know what's happening, what's going to change, and that you can train them for that. Data, we need lots of data. This might be something as simple as analytics from the Jadu CMS about what browsers people are using. We'll be running tests, I guess, watching if we know that a feature is going to be redesigned, say the news or documents or events. We want to sit and watch people in the real world add content into that, figure out where the pain points are and try and simplify that. And we kind of just want you to start talking to us and for us to talk to you. You probably noticed Jadu as a company really want to shorten that communication path so that you can pick up the phone and speak to us directly, especially if you found problems in the system that you think could be better. You can, like I said, pick up the phone, drop us an email, you can speak to me on Twitter. You really should follow me on Twitter. I'm really good at it. There's a lot of work for us to do. The analogy that I was at a conference last week and someone pointed out, it's that mass production analogy, something like these components here, they're all brand new to the software. There's a high initial cost for us to design these and develop them and test them. And that's at the start, while we're doing everything brand new, that's going to be a slow process because we're doing it right, we're making sure it's tested and testable. Once they're done, we can reproduce them. And for you guys building your own software, you can take those ready-made components and use them straight away. So when you get the emails, I really would like you to either volunteer yourselves or send it out and get people in your organisation who you think might be interested, and we can all make a better Jadu experience.